Ashes of Creation, an MMO project started back in 2017 by developers Intrepid Studios, closed its funding project with over $3 million in pledges. Since then, we've seen a slow trickle of updates and previews, painting a picture of just what this ambitious MMO project seeks to provide its players. The combination of some big claims mixed with the troublesome recent happenings in the MMO world have seen expectations for the game skyrocket. Today I wanted to take a measured and grounded look at what Ashes of Creation could, both with innovation and a little learning from others in the genre, use to truly make its impact on the MMO market, and in place of the epic taglines used on its Kickstarter, such as rebirthing the entire genre, what realistically could make Ashes of Creation something truly special. I'm Mitch, and this is what Ashes of Creation could do to knock it out of the park, and the dangers of hype. To quickly reiterate, this is not going to be a video just simply trying to hype the game. I'm far too aware that claims are just markings on a page until actually realised, and I think we'll all agree that if gaming today has taught us anything, it's to be measured in our expectations, even when companies promise the world. What I want to look at is, given the information we have about the game, as well as what we can learn from popular competition, is what could make this title really something to shout about, as opposed to yet another car crash. While looking further into the game, one thing is clear: the anticipation for this game is truly spiraling to crazy heights. As with most titles with bold claims and possible showcases to the player base yearning for the next smash hit, I don't need to explain just how bad hype can be for the game, as we are all front and centre for games such as No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077, as well as the more recent New World, just watching the sky-high expectations dissolve away when players got their hands on the final product. Ashes of Creation is making some big promises to its backers, with its marketing and developer updates. I'm sure most of us MMO fans would rather have less mechanics that actually work and are fun to play than a whole range of broken and ill-thought-out activities to deal with.
What the fuck?
A lot of popular MMOs have had years to develop with numerous updates and expansions, and hopefully Intrepid Studios behind Ashes of Creation don't reach for the sun trying to outdo them all at once, and instead look at making the core gameplay mechanics robust and entertaining. As if they stagger with this, as we've seen time and time again, there may not be much of an audience around to impress once things start to turn around. Both the increase in popularity as well as the advancement of potential monetization options have given developers a reason to lean towards making games for a wider user base as possible, as with the monetization side specifically, the more eyes you can get in your in-game store, the better. But in my opinion, if the developers Intrepid work on mass appeal too hard, then it truly starts to embody the jack of all trades and master of none predicament. A story-based theme park MMO will never be the best sandbox PvP game. Games that provide a wealth of hand-holding and accessibility to cater for players with less time will always be seen as less appealing to those die-hard hardcore players with sickening amounts of time available to play, as well as taking away from a certain style of MMO feeling when left to figure out things on your own. Intrepid Studios should not be afraid to let go of the desire to project an image that it will please every single type of MMO player, as the truth is, no MMO can. I get that Intrepid Studios want everyone to be very excited and ready to jump in on day one, but if the past few years of MMOs and gaming in general have indicated that once that feeling of disappointment from the player base starts to spread, it will continue to spread until even those players that in the long run would really enjoy the game feel reluctant to continue with it due to its now increasingly more negative overall reception. I think it really boils down to knowing the target audience, not just MMO players, but what type of players they are looking to cater for. New World, for example, spent most of its development dialed in with a more PvP focus, and following the beta, due to not managing expectations or simply due to misjudging the efforts required, released with very underwhelming PvE content. A clear indication that simply making an MMO for MMO players isn't going to get you very far in the long run, as the scope for what each player base personally enjoys is far more complex than with games such as Call of Duty or Forza. I hope that a more measured approach is taken this time around with Ashes of Creation, and expectations can at least be somewhat managed within reality to potentially avoid the game tanking itself before it's even really got off the ground. Games such as Cyberpunk pre-release threw around taglines such as "when it's ready," and we all see how that went. With so many systems that would be a challenge for even titans of the industry to implement, Ashes of Creation really need to make sure that they give themselves the time to get the game to the point where it will not just be yet another buggy, broken experience on launch. Of course, with all new games, especially of this scale, there will be teething issues in the first few months. However, I get the impression that a lot of potential players will be expecting Ashes of Creation to ultimately disappoint, and it won't take too much to turn off a large portion of the player base. As with all likelihood, after games such as New World, players will be quick to label the game as a similarly troubled and lackluster experience if major elements of the game are broken in the same way. I really want to be proven wrong, but after looking at the alpha as well as all the details on the company's posts and updates, I can't help but feel like Ashes of Creation is trying to do far too much for a smaller developer's first entry title, in a genre so fraught with missteps, and due to the nature of wanting to generate hype for the game's Kickstarter, it's easy to see why the developers really want to push the boat out when it comes to the game's features. But a lot of us remember times when at work or school when we've happily nodded along and make a million commitments due to wanting to please, just to be left alone, secretly thinking, "Oh God!" knowing that in our heart of hearts there's no way it can all be done. Like I said, I would love to be proven wrong here, and if the devs can pull off such a wide range of systems and mechanics, I'm sure I won't just be the only one that ends up surprised. With no launch date yet in sight, here's hoping that they'll give the development enough time to avoid the pitfalls that recently so many others seem to be continuously falling into with new releases. Another area around MMOs that's not worth overlooking when looking into a successful launch is around providing the experience to players that made games such as World of Warcraft such a success. Since World of Warcraft's epic fall like a misogynist drunken uncle face-planting at the MMO family barbecue, I feel like there's still a substantial amount of MMO players that are not getting their itch scratched when it comes to the current popular alternative offerings. I've lost count of the amount of comments that I've seen on mine and other videos with players commenting that Final Fantasy's solo story-driven leveling experience is not for them, or ESO's level scaling turns them off the game, as well as all out outlining that the gameplay of having an open world where you're tasked with exploring zones of ever-increasing level ranges, questing alone or with groups of others, seeking the challenge to rise to when encountering higher level zones, and having the freedom to take on the world with others, is something that, in my opinion, is why games like WoW specifically became so popular. Of course, this playstyle is present in MMOs such as Bless Unleashed and Guild Wars 2, but Ashes of Creation, based on what we've seen so far, has a real chance here to provide that style of gameplay in a contemporary title, and if done well, provide a popular and populated place for MMO fans of that style of gameplay to enjoy it. I am of course not disregarding players that enjoy Final Fantasy's heavy focus on story-driven content or the freedom that level scaling in ESO gives players. I'm just saying that there are already highly successful contemporary offerings for those playstyles, and while the previous king of the alternative more traditional style is face down in the flower bed, it would give a great time to capitalise on players looking for that experience. As it stands, what we've seen of Ashes of Creation has been fairly positive. The developers are putting a lot of pressure on themselves with the delivery of systems such as the nodes and seasonal weather, and just one look at the Kickstarter page will tell you that they're going all in when it comes to generating excitement around its launch. I myself, as I'm sure a lot of you, are far too skeptical and tired of being disappointed to jump on the hype train, and unfortunately more and more these days I read lines such as "the rebirth of the MMO", but I'm only really feeling like I'll start to believe it when I see it. What does interest me, however, with Ashes of Creation is simply its potential. Not shackled to a AAA overlord or desperately limping on with a failing IP, if lessons of those more recent failures are taken into account, and the developers really know the audience they are making the game for, then who knows, perhaps this one time we may have something worth getting excited about. And that about wraps up my look into Ashes of Creation and the challenges and potential it faces as we close out 2021. Are you looking forward to diving into Ashes? Have you played the alpha? I'm keen to get your thoughts down in the comments. It may just be me, but last year I looked forward thinking that New World wouldn't really hit the mark and Ashes of Creation looked more like my sort of thing. Although I'm also trying really hard not to get excited for the game, as nowadays, well, that mostly ends up being a slap in the face. Either way, if you enjoyed the video and want to be around when we do dive into Ashes of Creation on release, please consider subscribing. If you like the video, please give it a like, and it really helps small channels like mine. I hate having to say all of that every time. It makes me sound like an irritating YouTuber clone. But if pressing red buttons can grow a cool community of gamers to come together in this ever more crazy world, then hey, I'll play the game. I've got a bunch of things lined up for the new year, including a big video to start us off, and I'm really excited about that. See, there I was just taking the piss out of YouTube, and I'm going, yeah, big video, baby, wow! But it's true, it is true. Good things await those that lie within. Okay, I may have had a little bit too much coffee. Anyway, thanks for chilling with me today, and I'll see you guys in the next one.